Welcome to the 3G Fitness Podcast,
where three generations of trainers come together to discuss all things fitness related.
What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the 3Gs Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Coach Kyle. We got
Coach Michael, the baby boomer.
I'm Coach Cisco, the millennial.
Yes, sir. And today we have an interesting topic. We're actually going to dive into some insights in the personal training business and the industry. The first topic is it a lucrative business?
So I think the best answer to, or the best person to answer that is Michael, because Michael's been around from 1960s, 70s,
1600s,
80s,
the
90s. Nah, Michael's been a trainer a lot longer than we have. So, and I know Michael's probably prime in training was in the 1970s and 1980s when you kind of started, correct?
Started in 1978.
So you started bleeding into the 80s. Back when you started as a trainer, how lucrative was the field for you?
There actually wasn't personal training one-on-one.
Okay.
A lot of it was
Group.
through the gym. Because I worked for Jack and Lane European Health Spa, and that was working for them. One thing people need to remember is, and I think you guys know this, personal training, it's not necessarily a necessity.
It's a luxury.
It's a luxury.
It is.
So your clientele base it's a select.
Yes.
You know, you can't just get anybody that,
You can't just help everyone that wants to learn how to work out because
not everybody can afford it.
Exactly.
Right. So some people have to, they work out on their own and they end up working out wrong, picking up bad habits. But if you get that clientele base, and the way I see it now, you guys are pretty busy.
Yes.
There's money to be made. Definitely money to be made.
For sure.
Yeah.
If you stick with it long enough to get yourself there, because it's definitely a grind for sure.
It is.
Because it's going back to, I think, back in your heyday when people were working out, it was more the aesthetics, the muscle.
Yeah.
It was just a lot of the muscle and the looks. But I think as we progressed in the years, going into the 90s and the 2000s, all of a sudden it became more of a health necessity.
Which is a science.
Yes, which is a science. There it is. My man, it is. But it's true. Because now you're getting doctors that are like, hey, they're seeing patients that are maybe pre-diabetic.
Yeah.
And, now they're talking to people that have never even thought about working out. I was like, hey, you need to go work out. You need to learn how to drop your weight, how to drop your body fat. So I think the demographic got bigger and wider for personal trainers to work with, and not just only people that were going there for the aesthetics like they were back in your day.
And that's why we have such a different look between these two and me. We have a different look that we always argue about because I'm not such a science person.
Correct.
Okay, because that's not the way I was brought up in the gym. Okay, I was brought up in the gym from learning from other guys and learning new ways of working out, to where now it's like done from a book.
Yeah, and so
there wasn't that much science back then.
Yeah, so
as we progress, and
So now that, like how you said, now that personal training is more of a science, it became a little bit more of a professional. Now we're starting to like put more value into training because it's more like we said, it's becoming a health necessity. And so, like going back to now in today's day, is it a lucrative business? It's very similar to what Kyle said. I believe it is, but it is also a grind business. We're still not a necessity. It's still a luxury.
It's still a luxury.
Especially when you're working one-on-one with a coach, because if you can't afford, what an ongoing session rate is, then you can't afford to work with that coach. You'll still have access to working out, but it's not going to be guided by a professional.
Right.
So now looking at that, when we're looking at personal training sessions today in 2025, ongoing rates to work one-on-one with a trainer, coach, how much do you guys think that's going for?
Well, I think on an average, okay, for a trainer to really make money.
No, but you're talking about on average what to make money to cost. Yeah. What's the what do you think the average rate is costing to work with a trainer?
Commercial or private? Because that can vary too.
Well, what's the difference between commercial and
I
private?
guess-
what would you charge? What would I
About
charge?
100. Never mind. I would say about 100 per session.
Yeah, it's about 100 per session, right? Give or take. Yeah. Now, if it's 100 per session, that's where we're going back, bleeding into it. Are you working privately or are you working at a commercial? Because if you're working in a commercial gym,
it's a percentage.
Yeah, you're not getting the 100.
Get like about 20% of that.
So
Chump change. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the thing, is that if you are working in a commercial gym, the gym is going to get
80%.
About 80%, and maybe 20% of that's going to go.
But if you're a new trainer, I definitely would recommend you to start at a commercial gym because it makes you learn the ropes. It is like a stepping stone, you learn a lot about training people, training different demographics.
And you also learn the business part
exactly,
of it.
And the business aspect of it. So there's a pros and cons to it for sure.
Yeah.
But in terms of
I think
money,
all of us at one time work for a gym.
Yeah, we all did.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's usually where you start off.
Right. If you guys didn't know, me and Cisco started at 24 Hour Fitness. Did you start? Did you work at 24?
I worked a stint at 24 Hour Fitness.
Okay.
And then after that, I
did Bally's, right?
It was Bally's, and it turned into 24 Hour Fitness.
Yeah.
And then it changed. And then after that, I went independent.
Right.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until we started going independent is when we really started making money.
Right.
So
now
true,
you pocket
because
a little bit more of that.
Because it's kind of like I said, all three of us have had experience of working with a commercial gym where, say you do train somebody and that session is going for $100, we're not making $100 that hour with our client. So one of the things that you got to kind of figure out is, if you are going to go independently and privately, you got to pay whatever overhead you're at. And what I mean by overhead, so if you are training privately at a gym and you're renting out space, whatever space you pay for that, the rest of it you profit.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're wearing two faces.
Yeah.
Okay, the business face, and then you're wearing the training face.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got to remember, you got taxes, you got overheads to pay, gas and transportation and stuff like that you got to pay. Mm-hmm. And then you got to go into the fact that you got to pay your mortgage or your rent, food, and stuff. So you really have to you got to have clients to get that money and to be able to
and that's why I say I agree with Kyle. I think if you're a brand new trainer and you're looking to get into the field, I would actually recommend to get started at a commercial gym, because not just that, you're in a place that's going to be providing you with foot traffic, providing you with more opportunities to work with individuals.
You're going to have a manager that's going to be...
You're going to learn the business aspect of it. Yeah, you're going to learn the business aspect of it, because I like I said, when I was a trainer, I got hired in as a trainer. Then I became a fitness manager. When I became a fitness manager, I learned the business aspect of personal training. And that's when I understood, like, oh, damn, we could actually really make money off of here. But here's the thing, is that when you're working as a trainer, you just get excited to help somebody. You get excited to like train them or anything like that. And then after a while, you're so scared of losing them that you're afraid to ask them to keep going or anything like that too. That's the one thing that I would see with a lot of new trainers, is that, you got started, you work with them for a month, your month with them is done. Well, what do you have to do again? You have to ask for them to continue. And then sometimes it's not easy to ask somebody, be like, hey, Mike, you know what? Our first month is done. So in order for to continue, it looks like we're going to be working out this many times, this frequently. We need you to just give us $1,000 again. Well, and that's hard to ask for people sometimes. So that's the beauty of working at a commercial gym, is that you get those repetitions and you get that practice, and you get to learn how to like ask for that without being so demanding as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when you become independent, now it's all about progress with your client. Because your client isn't going to come back if he's not making any progress.
Yeah, well, that's always going to be.
He has to see the results, and then it's easier for him to automatically say, "Oh, all right, let's go again. Let's do this. Let's do that."
Yeah, getting your clients results, it's always was going to keep them coming back. But at the same
regardless
time,
of commercial or whatever.
Yeah, commercial or private, it doesn't matter. Just because you're a private trainer doesn't mean you're a better trainer. Just because you're at a commercial gym doesn't mean you're a better trainer. Remember that. You're still the same trainer. We're talking about the lucrative side. We're talking about how you're going to make money. Now, if you're that same trainer that is asking religiously all the time, getting your reps in on the business aspect, hey, all right, we need you to pay this much for this month of training. Cool, boom. Once you get comfortable doing that in a commercial gym, I think it's best to now practice that privately, independently. Because now, instead of seeing 20% of a session, now you're seeing a lot
80
higher.
to 100.
Yeah, So to me, I always tell a lot of people, because like I said, I've been doing this for 15 years, and I feel like I've been very successful. And, you know, I've been able to keep a roof over my head. I've been out of my parents' house for over 13 years. I've been very independent on my own with just personal training as my only source of income. You know, 13 of years of it was at 24-hour fitness, and the last like 3 to 4 years was independent. And it's worked for me, and it's actually something that I enjoy doing. I don't even consider it work. But what I think helped me out was learning the business acumen of it.
Right.
All right.
100%.
Knowing like, all right, if I'm making this much money per client that I work with, how many of those clients do I need to work with on a weekly basis and to make what I want to make? And so, you get more into that when I think you become independently.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, you're
It's your own business
it's
now.
your own
You got to
business
figure it
now.
out for yourself.
So,
you don't have a manager doing it for you, so you got to get into the numbers.
Yeah. So like for me, I'm helping out a buddy right now, and I told him straight up, I'm all like, I think you should get started at a commercial gym. He's like, yeah, but you know, they don't pay anything. I was like, yeah, but you've never been a trainer. Like, well, first of all, what clientele do you have? You have none. I'm all like, oh, but I got buddies on Instagram. I'm all like, none of your buddies on Instagram are gonna want to pay you for that.
Yeah,
I was like, look at all of your like regular clients. Look at all of your regular clients. You know, are these clients that you guys even knew before they signed up for training? Yeah. Like, no, most of my clients, if you even like, we all see our clientele or anything like that, they're not like our real friends on Instagram. They became our friends.
Sure. I've had a few though.
You had a few, but they became our friends as we go on or anything like that too. You know,
he's able to, if he goes and works for a club, he's able to meet people and connect with people and pull them.
Yeah,
pull.
Yeah, the difference is the foot traffic.
Yeah,
you know, for sure. We don't have that as private
trainers.
But you start building your roster, you start building your book up and things like that. But then also, like I said, not just only the business aspect, you start working with a variety of clients.
Right.
You know, me personally, I think I have almost about 70% of my clientele are over 50. You know, they're all over the age of 50. If I look at my, you know, friend circles, none of my circle friends are even near 40. So it's like, but these are people that I met throughout the years that I've helped them get to their goals, and the results, the fact that they've stayed with me. And it's like, all right, cool. And through the years, they become my friends. You guys were at my wedding. There was literally a table of just full of clients, and it was like, and I think the youngest one there was probably like 42 or something like that. So it's just like, these are people that become our friends, but it's not like I always tell everybody, go somewhere that's gonna give you the opportunity to work with a variety of people, because then you kind of get an idea of it. Then, like I said, once you kind of build those books up, if you're looking to go independent, it's up to the client. The client can either follow you or the client can stay wherever they're at.
Yeah, but more often than not, they'll follow the trainer.
They'll follow the results.
Invested in the person that's actually helping them, not the club.
Yeah, and that's
how many years were you at 24 as a trainer?
Well, because even when I was a manager, I still trained. So 13 years.
13 years.
13 years. So I was there for.
So you've only been private for like two to three.
Like, I got private. Well, I've been private longer than you, and I know I brought you in.
I'm like two.
You're 2021.
Who was
2021?
Like 4.
4 years.
How many privates have you worked for?
Just the one that you see me at.
Really?
Yeah, man. I was always working at a commercial gym, and then I was a manager. And
wow.
So to me, you know what I love about it? It's like I love the business of it.
Yeah.
You see that, and then when I became a manager, my job was to develop the new trainers, teach them the business part of it. So to me, how I always approached them, I'll be like, look, I would always sit down and get to know like the new trainers, and like, all right, well, how much money are you trying to make? Well, we need to dissect this. All right, if you're trying to make $4,000 a month, then you need to make $1,000 a week. You need to make $1,000 a week. How many people do you need in front of you? And that's how I always dissect it. And that's how I transferred it to myself, you know?
Makes sense.
And that's the main thing. I always tell a lot of people, I'm like, this job could be lucrative if you have them.
You work your ass for it.
You got to grind for it. You got to constantly be promoting yourself. Word of mouth is always going to be good. You know, if you have a client, have them bring a buddy, have them bring a relative. That's always going to be good.
I think if you're gonna go the private route, definitely try to build your social. That's like big nowadays, you know. I get a lot of my people from social media.
The internet in general, you know. I got a buddy of mine, and you guys may have seen him or anything like that. He's been an independent trainer for like 7 years, and his social media presence is 0. But he uses a third party. He uses Thumbtack.
Okay.
You know, he uses.
I used to use them.
Yeah, and like with that's how he gets clients or anything like that. He uses a lead generating website that helps him out. You know, people that go on there look for a trainer. He pops up. they communicate. So there's different ways.
Google does that.
Google does that as well.
Yep.
Google gives you lead generators as well too. So you got to invest into that. The good thing, like I said, if you have a strong social media presence, that helps out a lot too. You know, if you got, there's people that I know that got over 10,000 followers. Cool, just put a post up. Out of 10,000, one should bite. You know, then it's like,
but it
all right,
takes
cool.
time. You know, it takes time to like establish yourself as that person known for training and being in the gym for sure.
And then this is how I always tell a lot of people, going back to like the making it lucrative, figure out, like I said, what you're making. All right, so let's just make numbers super simple. I'm all like, you've worked at a commercial gym, now you're going to transition to being independent, and let's just work with an easy number. If you start working independent and you're now profiting $50 per client, if you profit $50 per client, how many clients on a weekly basis do you want to see to live comfortably? You know, if you're seeing 10 clients a week, 10 times 50, it's 500. Yeah. So you're making 500 a week off of 10 hours. Double that or anything like that. So I always use simple numbers or anything like that. I'm not saying that that's what you're profiting. You should be profiting more than 50, but let's just use 50 as an easy number. And so say if you're seeing 20 clients and each client profits you $50, that's $1,000 a week. You're making $1,000 a week, working 20 hours, 52,000.
Working less and making more is a big thing.
But here's the thing: is like I said, you got to figure out. So the same thing. I that's how I do my math. I know how much money I profit per client, so I kind of know what sweet spot I like to be at to make sure I'm making more than what I was making at 24 Hour Fitness. And so, and to me personally, I always say if I'm doing roughly between 25 to 30 sessions a week, I'm making more than I was making at 24 Hour Fitness, where at 24 Hour Fitness I was probably working between 35 to 40 sessions a week.
Making way less.
So, you know, it's one of those where it becomes lucrative when you do have that clientele or that base that follows you, but you got to be consistent with it. You got to find out where your base profit is at too. And then, like I said, and yeah, you're working less, but also don't get it twisted. Just because I said you're working 25, 30 hours doesn't mean your schedule is that simple.
You're probably at home like trying to figure out other business stuff or workout
because your scheduling your scheduling gets a little rough at that time. You know, we as trainers, we train when people are available. People are either available before work or after work. They usually tend to be available around that time. So we do tend to have, I know me personally, I have a split shift. So
Same.
I train my early morning clients. Usually they're retired, so they can come in anytime between 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. And then I'll have a good break in the middle of the day. Then I come back for my evening clients, and that could vary between 4 to 8 p.m. So it just varies. And the good thing about it is you're in charge of it.
Yeah.
Bad thing about it is like, sometimes it's like, you got that 4-hour gap.
Crazy hours.
It does take a tack on you.
But it takes time to also build that type of schedule because obviously as a beginning trainer too, you're more of like a yes person, right? Because you're still trying to build your clientele. You're like, oh, you want to train? Yeah. And then your schedule's all over the place.
Yeah.
So it takes a journey.
And sometimes you have to go with the client, you know, and you have to, sometimes the client can't afford your rate. So you do have to kind of like,
work with them a little bit.
Work with them.
Well, you could. I mean, that's
you kind of have to because everybody, you know, doesn't make that same amount.
At the same time, my rebuttal to you,
where you're at.
Yeah,
that depends on where you're at in your career.
And that depends where you're at in your career because you sound like my buddy, and I tell him I was like, you don't want to devalue your worth. Facts. You know, it's not like you're worth that, dude. Like I got a buddy of mine, and I know what he charges, and I just roll my eyes, and I'll be like, you can't be like, this is why you're training 8 to 10 people a day, and why I'm only training 4 to 5. And I'm all like, this is why you're so tired on the weekends and I'm not. You got to have a work-life balance. And in order for you to have a work-life balance, you got to know your worth. And then you also need to know, like, you can't just devalue yourself. Like, hey, you can't afford me. You can't afford me. That's fine. There are other options that you can work with. If you want to work with me maybe once every 2 weeks, so instead of doing this so frequently and I give you more, if you want to do that, or if you want to transition to something where maybe it's online training where I do have cheaper rates, then we can go with that route, but it's more on your own. And, you know, but you
So you're saying you've never worked with a client as far as your rate. Yeah, you said, okay, look, I'll cut this a little bit off here, a little bit off of here. You've never done that?
No.
I think just
ever?
about. I think
Well,
about-
ever like maybe maybe
Well,
a
that's what I'm
handful
saying.
of times, but
when you first started,
Well,
Yeah,
that's the
that's
beauty-
what- that's why I said it depends on where you are in
It depends
your
on where
career.
you're
Well,
at.
that's what I'm
like I
saying.
said, if I'm fully loaded, if I'm already at my client, cap rate, I stay at that. I'm not gonna add another client for a smaller rate when most of like my other clients are paying my full rate either, because and if it's something that I don't do it long term, I'll be like, look, all right, I'll give you 2 weeks to bounce back. Let's just chalk off like about 5 to 10 sessions off your rate just to see how you feel. But I don't really like doing that, because then if I'm doing that for one client,
You
then
might
I'm
do it for
cheating on
others.
my
But-
other
But
clients.
what I'm saying is that if you bring in a friend or to be a trainer and he's just starting off, you wouldn't expect him for him to charge the same rates as you, right?
No,
definitely not.
not.
Pricing is a very
Pricing,
interesting
but
topic.
that's why.
Yeah,
look,
pricing is very important. You
Well,
know?
that's-
and you got to price to your knowledge, to your experience.
to what
That
you feel
too.
like you can provide.
Well, that's why, like I
Over
said,
time, the
where
more
I'm at-
confidence you build, the more you'll be able to raise your prices.
Yeah.
But raising your prices in general is scary for a lot of people.
It is,
yeah.
You know?
and that's why. But I know my buddy. My buddy's been a trainer for a long time too, and that's why I keep telling him that too.
But he should.
Now, if you're just getting started, Now, if you're brand new, you're getting started. You need to build up your clientele. You might need to get started off training maybe 1 to 2 people for free to just get results with
Right,
them.
right.
Then
Right,
they're
exactly.
your before and afters, and now you can start charging the next one. Like, hey, you know what?
Yeah.
I got them. Maybe start charging them, $30, and maybe that gets you going. All right, now you went from training 2 for free, now you're training 4 for 30 each. Now you develop them now bigger fore and after. It's like, all right, cool. Now you can go with another group and like, all right, now let me train 7 people for $50 each. Now as you're building up, that's the smart way to do it. But that's just like doing any side business, any side hustle you have. If it's a side hustle that's going to become your passion project, you got to start off low and
work
then
your way
go
up.
up and whatnot.
Which, speaking of side hustles, because there is a high turnover rate for personal training, there's a lot of trainers that have side gigs.
I did.
Because their main, their main business is not making them enough money to.
Because when I
survive.
started, it wasn't a big thing. It wasn't a big thing. So when I started, the first thing I told myself, when I saw that, wow, man, I'm struggling just to make it work. The first thing I had to do, I had to pick up a trade. That's what I did. Because I knew if I picked up a trade, it's going to take me years to master it and to do it. So I picked up being a carpenter, when I was in my 20s, and I went through the training program there, but I also did personal training. So I kind of like did both.
Right.
And
Right.
you kind of have to. I mean, not everybody is you. Shit.
Yeah,
I'm just
not
gonna
everybody
say-
has the luxury of
Yeah,
being
I'm
able
not
to keep
gonna-
all
I'm
their
gonna say that,
clients
right?
and having good retention
Look,
rates.
if you have to pick up a side hustle,
There's-
like you said, Kay,
exactly.
if you have to pick one up, pick one up. Go with it. Go.
Some
if you
people
want to
can
take it to
handle
the
being a trainer.
Yeah, because if you don't
I think
make
we're
it,
lucky and we're blessed.
if
and
you
like-
don't make it in this business, you got to have something to fall back on.
Well, yeah, you do. You do.
Because this business can get discouraging at
100%,
during
1000%.
the years.
I know so
that you're
many who
doing
didn't
it.
make it. They wanted to be it, and then like they fell out like a few months after.
Yeah,
It's
so-
tough. It's hard.
And do I regret getting no?
No.
Because I got something that I still use now to this day.
Yeah.
And it's just something to fall back on. But if you love fitness and you love working out,
Right.
then this is a business for you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So going back to the main question, in 2025, is personal training a lucrative business?
I'm gonna say it depends. It depends if you work for it. It's gonna take time, and it's not gonna be right away, but it can be.
It's like
lucrative
anything
for
you
sure.
do. If you have a passion for it, it's going to be lucrative for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Yeah.
like I said, I mean, I agree with both of my fellow trainers over here. Yes, it is a lucrative business if you put your work into it. So it's not an easy work.
It's not gonna happen right away.
You definitely need a grind. Like I'm telling you, you can have the strongest social media presence, you can have the strongest internet leading generating business, but if you're not applying yourself to make something work with that. It's not, you got to put in the effort. So yes, in 2025 it is lucrative. You just got to put your mind and effort to it, and like I said, once the ball gets rolling, it doesn't feel like you're working.
And then you meet people.
Yeah.
You
I
meet
met
people,
both.
you
I
make,
met, I
you
met
know,
both of these
yeah, new
guys right here. You
relationships.
know, at the gym.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Notice how he's so excited to meet us and being here, like, yeah, we met Mike.
Yeah, you know.
Yeah, we met Mike.
He's
so
aight.
He's
He's
aight. All right, you guys. Well, my
But
name
hold on,
is.
wait. But, you know, before we go, I do want to say, if you are thinking about becoming a personal trainer, just make sure you're doing it for the right reasons. Ask yourself, are you really into helping people? Because if you are, it's such a fulfilling industry for sure. Like, the amount of joy that I see and get from, you know, seeing people grow is insane. You know, nothing's gonna take that feeling away from this business. So,
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
hey, don't do it for the money. Do it for the love.
100%,
If you find yourself doing things for the love, the money will come its way.
absolutely.
All
That's
right,
my
so
final thoughts.
Like, comment, subscribe, share your thoughts, and let us know what you guys think. My name is Coach Cisco.
I'm Coach Michael.
And I'm Coach Kyle.
Catch you on the next one.
Later.